Were there specific visual or cinematic references that you leaned on to bring your film to life?
Edwin being the director, you know, he was like, well, do your best with it, you know. But I can tell you this, Edwin is a very organized director. You know, everything was intentional. If you remember the film, I know it got a little glitchy, but there's that scene where he's like imagining him dancing with the girl in the red dress, and then he kind of transitions from like regular clothes into his like salsa outfit. You know, they do like a whole dance number. And so he was very specific about everything. You know, I remember that on set. All the transitions to show time passing when it was like Halloween, then it was Christmas. So yeah, definitely. There was a lot of intention from him.
And Stefan, what conversations do you hope that your film will spark?
I think during that time when I was writing the script, it was obviously about police brutality, but it was when, you know, Eric Garner got murdered, and Trayvon Martin's child wasn't so far off, and I was working on the script for years based on that kind of experience. And with this film, you know, I just wanted people to have a strong understanding of what it means to lose a loved one in that kind of situation. You know, we, on both sides, both conservative and liberal, or whatever you want to call them. Because sometimes we keep, on social media, we just keep blasting their faces instead of like really knowing who these people are. Of course, we have nothing but the best intentions, but what really impacts us is getting to know these people.
And Cedric, can you share a particular moment during production that was specifically challenging or emotional for you?
When we shot on a moving A-Train, the entire day was challenging. But emotional? I think the first time when we screened it overseas the first time, that was emotional because we did not expect that. We just thought we made a little daydream on a subway train. Turned out to be a lot more.
And back to you. How do you envision your role will impact people, storytelling-wise, or just in general?
For my character specifically, Francisco, I was really excited and proud of this film, but the role, because, you know, I think the conversation around Latinos in this country, you know, is always different, I guess, depending where you are and, you know, your experiences. But as far as representation, we don't normally see Latinos in the role of like the voice of reason or the voice of encouragement, right? Francisco is there to try to help his brother find his passion, you know, and so I think it's important that we see more of that, you know, because I've been doing it 15 years, I've done so many different roles, you know, on different levels, and anytime I've done things like on TV and stuff like that, I'm always a criminal. You know what I mean? It's like the drug dealer, the dangerous man, you know, and we get that more often than anything else. And so for me, I was really excited for this because, again, we get to represent a different side that's also very real in who we are.
So we're gonna keep it with you for a moment, and I'm gonna ask you, are there any particular roles that you envision that you would like to see or not see but be in that is going to, that's rooted in your community and heritage that you would like to see out there on screen that you haven't done yet?
I think it's happening slowly, very slowly now. You know, Pedro Pascal's kind of leading that. You know, he is the leading man, you know, which is something very different for our demographic of people, for Latinos, Latinas, you know, and filmmaking. Again, we've been the help, you know, we've been the danger. So, you know, I would love to see, you know, I love that Pedro is kind of leading that a little bit more, because for me, I think I've been, my opinion on Latino filmmakers is that we need to learn how to tell stories that are human stories, and then they just happen to be Latinos. You know, I think we suffered from creating content that often injected too much culture into it, where it was like, here's a quinceañera, here's the chancleta joke, you know, like we've seen that so much, and it shouldn't be about cultural awareness. It should be a human story that we all can relate to, and then we just happen to be Latino. So to answer your question more specifically, I would love to see myself. I do feel I'm in that cloth and in that caliber of Pedro, where I've done the drama, you know, I got deep emotional connection, and then I've all the way to comedy, you know. But the dream role would be to be like an action hero status. And not only like Marvel, like superhero, I mean like Will Smith, Tom Cruise, you know, Jason Statham. Like these guys, you put them in like an action movie and it's like awesome, you know. So that's the dream role for me.
Right. And Stefan, as far as a filmmaker goes, what are the particular stories rooted in your community and culture that you're eager to tell next?
I'm with him. I want to make action movies.
Let's do this, bro.
No, I do want to make like you know, my biggest inspiration for See You Yesterday was Back to the Future, and I was part of a project, you know, that takes place in Ethiopia in 1930s about like this Black Indiana Jones type of feel to it, you know what I'm saying? And I want to do like a bank heist in Jamaica. You know, I want to do, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to do cool shit like that, and I wanted, you know. And also I'm Guyanese, so for Guyana, I want to do like a biopic about my parents, how they met and how they came to the United States and whatnot, you know, and we'll do this in the style, you know, of Forrest Gump or something like that. It's like really polished. So that's how I'm envisioning my future.
Gotcha. And Cedric, same question for you.
I have a couple of projects that are coming up. One of them definitely wants to do the existence between being Caribbean and American and being Caribbean and everything else and being somewhere stuck in the middle. And you're either too one or you're not enough of the other. So what does that leave you? Like your family brings you here for a better life, but it's a culture of your home that you seek. So you're always stuck in between this push and pull. So I want to do something that talks about the people who are in the middle. And if you're Caribbean, anything, you're kind of in the middle.
Yeah. Right. And Stefan, I want to swing it back to you and ask a question about challenging moments or emotional moments that you had during production of your film.
I just want to piggyback off of what he says, because growing up in Brooklyn, I'm from Guyanese parents, and when I no longer have the accent, so every time growing up, people say you don't sound like you're from Brooklyn. You know, so you're not American. I have to ask my mom. I say, Mom, am I African American? You know what I'm saying? And she said, yeah, you are. You was born and raised here, boy. You know what I'm saying? And also she said, you know, Mom, you know, even though I'm American, I'm still Guyanese by blood. So I, you know, of course, I go home to Guyana. My cousin say, no, that's boy, that's American. But here, everybody says, no, you're not American. You know what I'm saying? And when I did the feature film, of course, in the short, you don't really see the Caribbean influence on it, but when I did the feature film on Netflix, you can check out the long version on Netflix. And on Netflix, I have it set in Flatbush, where you see, you know, North Caribbean people in there. And during that production, swing back to your question, I'm the only one on set that understood how to place the cultural references in the film. You know what I'm saying? And trying to hire a crew that doesn't understand the neighborhood at all, because that's the only people I have access to during that time. This was time when jobs were so high that you can't get the best people that you want, so you go with the next best, which, you know, some of them in my crew was terrible. Now, all the best people are actually great. Because little to no jobs. But during that time, I hired a crew to just get me the Rastafarian flag, which is the old Ethiopian flag. Oh, I can't find it. Man, I went down Church Avenue. I bought Vietnam stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's me being the only person in the entire crew that understood the culture. That's what's challenging. And that people not listening to you, you know. Yeah.
Well, the biggest inspirations for you in doing your performances or just your role as an actor?
I love this question. I want to just piggyback off the piggyback because I think this is super important, you know, as a diaspora, right? What we're talking about. I mean, I'm Puerto Rican, but I'm born and raised in Harlem, you know, East Harlem and El Barrio. And so the influences come from everywhere. You know, I grew up, you know, obviously from Puerto Rican culture. My parents born in Puerto Rico. They still live in Puerto Rico now, but I was raised here, you know, so I learned English first. And because, you know, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, there was absolutely almost no Latino representation on TV for me to look at. So coming up, I would see, you know, every classic you could think of. And so as an actor, it's so many different people that I have to pull from, you know. But if I could be more specific, I think in my comedy, I was looking at like Jim Carrey, obviously, you know, John Leguizamo was like the only Latino representation, you know, who like pretended to be Puerto Rican, but he's actually not, he's Colombian. But, you know, and if I think about emotionally, my inspirations is Will Smith and Leonardo DiCaprio. I say Will Smith because he to me represents how great you could be if you work at something. You know, because he didn't start as an actor. You know, and I think if you look at his early career, like he was great. Will's like Fresh Prince, inspiration, you know, but where he's at now, he worked at that. You know, and then Leonardo DiCaprio, he represents just being born to do something. He's been great since he was a kid and sustained that. So for me, I kind of find, you know, inspiration and influence in those two places where I'm like, I believe that I was born with certain talents, but I also believe that I can work and be even better.
Right.
Hey everyone, my name is Solomon. I'm an entrepreneur. I help filmmakers, independent filmmakers to find out how their trailer's performance is doing against other filmmakers in their in that genre. I wanted to know, how do you keep your film out of archival, and what is the strategy for that?
Repeat that question. Sorry.
I wanted to know, how do you keep your film out of archival, like after you do the film festival circuits, like Cannes Film Festival, and let's say if you go to TIFF and.
How do we keep it out of archival? Well, a lot of films live on after your festival run with distribution. Like, we can find your feature on Netflix now. That's one of the real ways, and that's one of the reasons we do the film festivals, is so we can get distribution, so the project can live on past us. And sometimes people make their film and they never even try to get distribution. They just made the movie for the art. I don't agree with that, but yeah, distribution is how we keep it from becoming an archive.
And piggyback off of that, when you take your film, especially a feature, when it's in the film festival, let's say Sundance, Slamdance, South by Southwest and whatnot, you meet industry professionals like distributors, agents, managers, producers, acquisitions, business affairs from different outlets, and they're the ones who actually help you get your film to either be on a streaming platform or to have the distribution and whatnot. So that's how people usually you do it. But usually you have to get a manager or agent first, or an entertainment lawyer, and then you work your way to kind of get marketing screenings. So different acquisition people will come into those marketing screenings to see the film and to see if it's going to acquire your piece. So that's how you keep it out of archive.
To add on, keep creating.
Yes.
Keep creating, because the next film he does is going to be great, and the next film he does is going to be great, and people want to then see what else you've done. And if you've done everything that they've talked about, and you've gotten distribution, and you've gotten on Netflix, then it's going to live there for a while. So when you create that next thing, it's like, people are going to check in, what else they done? Oh, they got another film, I can go and see that. And so you bring it back out of archival, because it's inevitable. It's inevitable, it's going to go into archives at some point, somewhere. And so just keep creating.
My name is Joshua W. Josie. I've worked with Maggie a few times, actor, writer.
Working where?
I'm sorry?
You work at where?
I've worked with Magali.
Oh.
And actor, writer, currently working in the legal field. So watching, of course, See You Yesterday was so triggering, and of course thinking about like how problematic, for instance, our system is. And something I'm hearing from you all is the importance of telling your own story. Otherwise, you'll be playing a stilted, overdone version of what someone thinks the story is. And what I'm interested in is like, what's your process when it comes to putting it together and getting a team? So you mentioned before, like sometimes you don't get the best. And I'm interested in like creating work and of course in building a team and a network. And I'm wondering, what was your process in getting there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, specifically to FUEGO, more of a Edwin thing. He had a, you know, but I know for a fact he pulled from his friends, right? When you're doing independent filmmaking, you gotta be resourceful within your network. You know, I'm right now developing a feature film, and that's, you know, you're pulling from the network of people. You know what I mean? You have to, and then those that you trust. One thing I can say is, you know, find your tribe. You know, find the people that believe in you and want to see you succeed and want to continue to build with you. You know, what's that thing where it's like, don't network upwards, a network horizontally. You know what I mean? And that stands true. You know, you got to work with those around you and the people that you can trust.
Because we can't work on our own films all the time, when I'm working on other projects, I pay attention to the people around me. Who's got the hustle? Who understands the information? Who knows the right thing to solve the problem? Like 2 of my guys are here now. I mean, we met on random projects, but we all recognize something in each other. And those are the people that I work with, and I can trust them to do any story that I put forward. So when you're working, pay attention to people. Pay attention to the hustle. Pay attention to problem solving, because those are the people you want to work with.
I was blessed enough to go to film school. But here's the thing about film school. We all had to work on each other's films. Not everybody, I mean, everybody doesn't direct their own movie, but in every single film we worked on, I was a grip, I was electric, I was DIT, did lighting, I did sound. Once you work for help other people's dreams, those that you help will come also to you. And piggyback off you were saying, you see who's a hustler, you see who's not. And that's very important when you're working on other people's sets as a PA or as a runner or even shadowing. Shadowing is okay too. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you have to start from the ground up to get those people. And even on my own level, I'm still trying to help other people out in a very real level for them. So it never really stops, honestly.
And then we'll leave it at that. Once again, a round of applause for all the artists and yourselves that came out and supported the great films. Make sure you keep supporting Conch Shell International Film Festival, conchshelliff.com, where there's constantly things like this going on. There are always events, and there are always writers, producers, actors, filmmakers, and so forth that you can catch via Conch Shell International Film Festival.